So tonight I'm going to talk about how you can drive green. And it's going to have connections. Everything's connected to everything else. So everything that Malcolm talked about will apply to what we're talking about. So we're going to cover the state of the EV market, electric vehicles, state and federal incentives, the cost of running a car on electricity in maintenance, and then a little bit about cars coming soon. But it's not just cars, as somebody said, it was trucks, it's buses, it's going to be ferries, it's going to be airplanes to some extent. So an electric car is cool, an electric bus is cooler, and the coolest thing you can ever imagine is an electric school bus. If you're in the market for an EV, I got some good news and bad news for you. The Inflation Reduction Act is going to make it possible for us all to have affordable EVs in time. I would say in 2030, we're going to look back and we're going to say that was an awesome piece of legislation in 2022. But for the next year or two, it's going to I'm going to tear my hair out, and so will you. We have a supply chain problem that stems from COVID. Then the war in Ukraine by the invasion by Russia is messing things up in a big time. And so almost all products, but particularly cars, not just EVs, but internal combustion engines, as you've probably heard, it's a bad time if you need a car. And even used vehicle prices are skyrocketing. And so if you want an EV, almost regardless of the make and model, you're probably going to have to order it. And you're going to have to wait. That seems that there are very few dealers, including some big dealers we know of, that have many cars on their lot. And so sometimes even a dealer that does a lot of business might even have one that you can test drive. A couple of years ago, we helped a lot of people save money purchasing a car through our program called Drive Green. Look it up at greenenergyconsumers.org/drivegreen. And we were helping people save thousands of dollars. But right now, there's just not enough inventory, so the car makers are actually charging above the manufacturer's suggested retail price. And it's going to take a couple of years for that to work out. I think we'll get back to the point where we can save people a lot of money down the future. Right now, we're trying to explain to you what your options are. So it's going to take a little more time in research. You might have to put $500 or $1,000 or something like that on with your pre-ordering. It's usually refundable. You should make sure you get that. And again, be prepared to pay over the MSRP. Massachusetts has a program called More EV. It's a state incentive. It's not a tax credit. It's a rebate that you have to apply for. It has some rules to it. Right now, you can get $2,500 for buying an all-electric vehicle like the Chevrolet Bolt or Nissan Leaf or maybe a Tesla Model 3. If it's a plug-in hybrid, that's one that has a battery that you plug it in. It's not a hybrid like the old Toyota Prius, but if you plug it in, but it also has a gas tank and a gas engine. The purchase price of those, in order to get it, has to be $50,000 or less. And so there's some cars are below that, but usually Tesla Model 3s, sometimes you can get one under 50. Not so much these days, usually they're over 50. Leased vehicles, if you're going to lease, you can still get the rebate, but it has to be a 36-month lease. And it has to be purchased and leased from a Massachusetts dealership. So even if you could get a good deal from another state, which you really can't, you would not be able to get the rebate, which makes sense. And basically you have to fill out a little bit of paperwork to prove that you got the car and it costs less than $50,000, and then the state will mail you a check. There's also a program for trucks. So that's for vehicles over 8,500 pounds. Rebate starts at $7,500. So this is a good move. This is all about, the bigger the truck, more likely it is to burn on diesel. And that's very bad for public health. Gasoline's bad for public health, but diesel is worse. And so we want to see this happen, particularly all kinds of delivery vehicles, commercial vehicles, a lot of public fleets. You want your city and town to look at these options. The federal tax credit. I'll say this again, the Inflation Reduction Act is a wonderful thing. The term game changer is often overused. It is a game changer. It deserves that credit. We are going to put the United States on the path towards reducing greenhouse gases on the order of what we're supposed to because of this bill. But a lot of the provisions are going to kick in over time. I don't know if you followed the politics of it all, I pretty much gave up hope that it was going to pass the United States Senate, and then Biden and Senator Schumer kind of pulled the rabbit out of their hat. They got Senator Manchin from West Virginia to negotiate, but he drove a very hard bargain. And so he isn't crazy about electric vehicles. He said if you want tax credits for electric vehicles, they're going to put some conditions on it because he doesn't want us buying materials from countries like China. So get ready for the complexity. Effective August 16th, the day that the president signed it, you can get a $7,500 tax credit on an EV, but it depends upon, it has to be made in final assembly in North America, and it will depend upon the battery size of the vehicle, and you have to have a tax liability of $7,500. If you owed $5,000 in your taxes, they're not going to write you a check for $2,500. You'll get a tax credit of $5,000. And the old provision was that it still will exclude General Motors and Tesla. Why? Because they were successful. They made over 200,000 electric vehicles, and the old law said that once you pass that number, your car would not be eligible for a tax credit. Kind of dumb. So what they've changed it to a clean vehicle credit, okay? And it has a lot of provisions. I didn't write this, I'm just explaining it, okay? Starting for January 1st, 2023 and going for essentially 10 years, there will be no more $200,000 cap. So now Tesla and General Motors are back in the game, and the other car makers, when they start making cars, they won't have to worry about having their tax credit expire after they reach 200,000. So now this will create more competition, which is a good thing. There are income requirements. If you make over $300,000 and you file jointly, you cannot get the tax credit. If you're an individual filer, your income can't be over $150,000. Our organization supports that. If you have more money than that, you don't really need a federal tax credit. And the fuel cell vehicles are now included. Don't buy one. They were the vehicle of the future 20 years ago, and they always will be. Electric vehicles have just surpassed them in terms of technology. And there will be applications for fuel cells in other places, but not in the car you're going to need around here. And good luck finding it. If you think it's hard finding an electric vehicle charging station, try to find one with hydrogen. Now there are new vehicle requirements in order to qualify. Okay, Joe Manchin at work here. The final assembly has to be in North America. I'm okay with that, but that's going to limit how many cars qualify right away in 2023. I can tell you right now there are billions of dollars of announcements are being made. There are factories being put up all over the United States, mainly in red states, which is weird, but they are being huge factories to build electric cars. So very soon there'll be a lot of makes and models that will qualify there. The price cap, now there are new price caps, which we also support. $80,000 for an SUV or pickup or van, $55,000 for sedan and hatchback. Again, if you can pay more for a car, you don't really need the federal tax credit. That's my opinion. And it kicks in on January 1st of 2023. But the batteries, the minerals in the batteries and the other battery component requirements also kick in, but every year the percentage of those materials that are going to be considered acceptable for the tax credit are going to ratchet up. So they're going to make the car makers work harder and harder to earn the tax credit. So here we go. 40%, starting in January 1st, 40% of the battery's minerals by value must be mined or processed in North America or a country with a free trade agreement with the United States or recycled in the United States. So what they're trying to say is, right now, right away, no more than 60% of the battery materials could come from China, for example, okay? And then every year, that percentage of we can get from China is going to go down, as an example. And that qualifies you for half of the $7,500. So that's just $3,750 for that. The battery components, the value of the components manufactured or assembled in North America must be at least 50% of the battery value. And so these things, I know it's confusing, but they add up to $7,500. And that's what's going to have, that the percentages are going to ramp up every year. So it's going to get harder and harder. The bar is going to get higher. The point I'm getting at, on January 1st, 2023, and for some time, there will be many cars that qualify today that will not qualify in 2023. So that's not good, right? If you're looking for an electric car, at least you can still get an electric car. They'll be available. You just may not get the tax credit, okay? So what we do think is it's still a pretty hot year. Higher priced EVs are selling pretty well. If you can afford that, very good. I'd rather see you drive a high-priced electric vehicle than a gasoline-powered car. Now, for the first time, the feds are going to give a used vehicle tax credit. The battery requirements will not apply. It's up to $4,000 or 30% of the sales price. You have to buy it from a dealership, meaning you can't buy mine. You'd have to get it from a dealer. And the car must be at least 2 years old and cost less than $25,000. So this is a good way of trying to make EVs affordable. So if I trade in my electric car in order to get a new one, then the dealership can take that car and sell it to somebody who maybe can't afford a brand new car. So it's a good thing. It only applies to the first resale. The income thresholds are half of what the new car thresholds were. $150,000 for joint filers, $75,000 for an individual filer. Not sure if there's a slide here. I'm working with someone else's slide deck, but Massachusetts state rebate is also going to, in 2023, will also have something for used cars as well. And so we supported that very heavily. We did some lobbying for that, and we're glad to have it. So in terms of charging your car, so these are different kinds of connections. This J1772 is, if you have one that's a level 1, as Malcolm said, that's the kind of service you have in your house. You can plug it right into an exterior outlet in your house, or even run it through a window if you had to. And that will charge your car. It's 2 to 6 miles of range per hour, which isn't a lot, but the average car might only go less than 40 miles a day. A lot of people can get by with that. What many of us have is a level 2 charger. I know that's the kind that Revision Energy and others would install. I have one of those. That charges quite a bit faster. It's 220 volts, 11 to 25 miles per range per hour. That's actually the newer EVs, you can charge faster with a level 2. And that's plenty. So how long does it take to charge my car? I'm driving from Quincy. I use about 90 miles. It takes me 3 seconds. I get out of the car, I plug in the car, and I go to bed. And so it'll give me 90 miles of charge in about 3 hours. So then Chatamo, that's kind of going out of vogue. That's for a Nissan Leaf and some Asian cars, but they're moving towards the kind of system that we have with most electric cars. There's a thing called DC fast charging that allows you much faster. My car is the fast charge is 90 miles in 30 minutes. That's slow compared to a lot of new cars. You can get it when you're on a road trip. You can usually do much faster than that. And that speed is getting faster and faster all the time, both at the charging station and with the new cars. All of us you can get a charging guide at our website. You go to greenenergyconsumers.org, Drive Green, and we have a lot of information on charging. Those of us who have an electric car carry around an app on our phone, an app called PlugShare or ChargePoint. There are others as well that tell me where all the charging stations are. I didn't need to charge coming here to Gloucester, but the map would tell me where I could if I had to. On the issue of charging fuel costs on a per mile basis, before National Grid just raised its electricity rates, charging a car on electricity is about the equivalent of $2.20 or $2.25 a gallon. So the more you drive an electric car, the more you're going to save compared to driving an internal combustion engine car. Even with the National Grid's rates, it's still cheaper to run a car on electricity than on oil. Should have a slide, but as Malcolm said, the maintenance on an electric car is pretty damn low. I take my car in to get a sticker, and I rotate the tires once a year. And that's all I've had a car EV since 2014. The 10 things that cost you the most on an internal combustion engine to repair and maintain don't exist in an electric car. And so anyone who has a fleet, that's why you're seeing Hertz, that's why you're seeing all the major fleet vehicles, you're seeing Amazon, and you see is because the cost of maintenance is so much less. It makes perfect economic sense. And so you need to apply that to yourself. How often do you want to take your gas-powered car to get it fixed? You'd much rather have an electric car. You're going to save a lot of money on maintenance and on gasoline. A lot of new cars coming soon. I don't have a comprehensive list because of the time here, but VW is making the Buzz. It's going to be electric cars. It's in Europe now. Europe has a lot of cars that we don't have yet, but we're going to see them soon. The Rivian's got a pickup truck. Ford 150 Lightning is already available. People have ordered it, are waiting on it. In about a year, you're going to see Chevy is going to come out with Chevy Silverado, which is the competitor to the 150 that's electric. Chevy's also coming out in about a year with Chevy Equinox, which is a mid-size SUV, a Chevy Blazer. Ford's got the Mach-E. They're going to keep coming out with new makes and models. Just about every car maker is now spending more money developing electric cars than gasoline-powered cars. So, if you want an electric Volkswagen, they'll be there for you. If you have predilections towards a certain make and model, it'll be there for you soon enough. And of all types. You want a compact car, that'll be there for you. An SUV, a pickup truck, what have you. So the sedans, the wide range of things. I'm not a patient person, but if we could try to be patient, these cars are being made. It's all about a bit of the supply chain issue. Remember the chip shortage? You heard about that? Well, there's a new law. There's chip factories being built. That's going to happen. But basically, that's what's happening is the car makers are just allocating their chips to, quite frankly, right now, the cars where they can make the most money. Within a couple of years, when the chips come in greater supply, we'll start seeing more cars being made. And it'll be across the board. Just about every car maker is come to the conclusion that they have to switch to electric, and they're sort of setting dates. Sometimes they're announcing them at some point they will not be making any more gasoline-powered cars. Final point, I guess, is Massachusetts is going to follow suit of California. We're going to adopt a rule that they have January 1st, 2035. You will not be able to buy a new gasoline-powered car in Massachusetts. And the car makers are over between now and 2035. Every year they're going to have a higher percentage of their sales will have to be electric. So you're going to start seeing that will also drive the supply of electric cars to us, because if they want to sell a car in 2030, 68% of the cars they sell will have to be electric. So the transition's happening. You can make it happen faster by whatever you do. Don't buy another gasoline-powered car unless it's used, and then you can trade it in for when the electric car comes to be that you're looking for. And we have a lot of events coming up. Go to our events page, and a lot of webinars, some outdoor events, that sort of thing. You can send questions to Drive Green. Thank you very much. That's it.